Welcome to episode 201 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and that's right, we are kicking off the second season with the doctors, and we have a great guest to help us do so. We will hear from Oklahoma State University's wheat geneticist and wheat breeder, Dr. Brett Carver, here in a few minutes. And we will be covering a lot of great stuff in this interview, and you will be able to find information about what we cover on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows in it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
What have you done in your program to combat, or maybe are currently doing in your program to combat, not that early or that late winter freeze, it's that, those Easter freezes that we all know are all too common here in the Southern Plains?
Dr. Josh Lofton. Across from him, we find Oklahoma State University's Extension Soil and Water Conservation Management Extension Specialist and holder of the longest title on the podcast.
We've talked about double crop, but can you talk about that? How do you think that it's worthwhile to look at some of these rotational effects on these varieties or vice versa? Dr. Jason Warren. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
You're saying this, and I hadn't heard it. Where's this gluten come from that's going back into the bread? Is it actually wheat that's been separated so you concentrate the gluten, or is it it's a processed wheat?
Dr. Brian Arnell. The doctors enjoy hearing from you and answering your questions, so if you have a question about soil or crop production, jump over to reddirtagronomy.com and leave it there, or just go ahead and send us an email directly, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, and we will discuss your question on an upcoming podcast. Now, without further ado, let's get a crop update from Dr. Brian Arnell. Keep in mind, this was recorded this past Wednesday, January 18th, and we were actually getting a very minimal amount of rainfall here in Stillwater. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Brian, where are we with the wheat crop right now?
Mixed bag of results from what I've been seeing, and we'll hear from others. So we've finally had the moisture, of course, over the fall. Got most of the stuff that got in the ground is up. Even the things that we got in late, we had some wheat going in 1st of December. It was able to get up, went through that cold snap, and it's up and running pretty good right now. Hearing some reports, some of the stuff that was dusted in, some significant issues down the southwest because it was dusted in, and now it's up with every weed seed that was out there. So all grass species and wheat dominating the southwest districts in their wheat, trying to fight that. On the dusted in stuff, the stuff that was planted late, everything I'm hearing, up well, looking good, minus the panhandle. I think probably once you start passing out by Woodward, Jason, you've been out that country, it's when it starts going downhill?
I would say, yeah, it's pretty damn desolate. Yeah. If you get past Buffalo and Woodward, even around like Quinlan, there's a little patch of wheat that I saw looked really good, but even east of Alva, in between, say, Cherokee and Alva, it's pretty damn rough.
Well, that's where it was blowing, right?
Well, yeah, and like I was out there and I was talking to one of my friends from Texas County, and he said, yeah, I've been out west and there's no wheat from here to the Rocky Mountains. Yep. There's a lot of planted wheat. Yep. The ground is covered with seed, but there ain't hardly a stitch of it.
There's not any of that.
Northwest Oklahoma's pretty damn rough.
So what I've been talking a lot, and I had 5 calls yesterday on fertilization. What are we going to do about it? Here's my problem with what I'm looking at is we've got where we have wheat up. It's looking pretty good. It's growing pretty good. Fairly warm, the first part of this week. So we're recording this on the 17th, 18th. Around the 14th, we were 71 degrees. Subsoil moisture is in the tank. If you look at, I put out a blog the first part of this week, I guess last week, and I looked at mesonet from 0.16 and the mesonet 0.32 or whatever that deeper depth is, and for a lot of the wheat belt, those numbers look almost identical. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking a difference of 1/4 inch to 1 inch when you add another 2 foot of soil. That's that's not hopeful. And we're talking 2 inches in the top 16 inches, and then 2 3/4 inches in the top 3 foot. And so my concern is we're it's raining a little bit this morning, but we're talking 1/3 of an inch. I'm hoping we get more, but we kind of need it to cool off a little bit. I know that slows down forage production, but we need to put on the brakes on some of this ground until we get some moisture to start reserving moisture. Because if it's 60 degrees, that wheat's rolling. We've got a little bit of wind, so we're pulling moisture. So I'm holding back the rains impossible on the fertility until we find more of the guys that have a lot of acres to cover. I mean, the guys are running 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 acres. Tend to be going out right now. They started running the first part of January. They're going to low dose. They're going 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen, maybe 100 pounds of urea, maybe 10 gallons, 15 gallons UAN. They're just getting some on, and they're still holding back to see what's going to happen and just wait for some moisture.
And with that, it is a time sensitive game when it does come to those applications. When it would be too late? That's always been my question for over the years. When would be too late for that?
Way to pose that one. Thanks.
Yeah,
that's a softball.
Can
of corn. I've been only talking about this for 10 years now.
That's what it was.
So that's that
10 or 15.
topic. No, so jointing.
Yeah.
Post jointing. We're getting and it's been consistent. Even last year in the horrible rain. If the nitrogen got in the soil, it could be after joining, and I can make full maximum yield compared to pre-plant and better than pre-plant. So it's more of mechanics. Get it on in front of rain when you can, sometime between I'd prefer it to be between March 1st and later, but basically between February and April. Just get in front of a rain when you can. So it's more about when you can get it down than the crop, because the crop is big. I will say one thing I'm trying to get more guys to do, and I'm offering this out to everything. If you're going down, haven't gone, and you're wanting to put a lower dose on right now, put 0 checks in your application. So I'll create an applicator shape file form where they take nitrogen from 1/2 acre and put it on another 1/2 acre, and so you have the 0, because we've used the 0 checks in corn, and it's pretty helpful. But right now in the wheat, imagine if you go out in March or April and you're trying to figure out if you want a top dress or how much more you want to add to that first shot, and you don't find your 0. Well, that in itself is telling. Or if the 0 shows up on day 1 after you applied, that means you are running on fertilizer. That means the crop is going to need everything from you. So we can use this little 0 check. Actually, Wade Thompson, our department head, came up with a 0 check out of Virginia Tech when he was out there doing the Green Seeker back in the early 2000s. So that first concept came out of Wade's program in Virginia. So if anybody wants me to create an applicator shape file to go out in a spinner spreader or a sprayer, I can do that, and I can turn it around in a couple minutes. And otherwise, you go out there and just turn it off for a second, and just kind of keep an eye on it.
So really, there are benefits to kind of spot on your land, just kind of going
spot check. Yep.
Yes,
and it's just the reverse of the enrich. If you haven't fertilized and you don't plan to fertilize right now, put out an enrich strip, use a push spreader, use a sprayer or whatever, and get those out. Because right now our soil is also in really big flux. We had the drought brought up all the nitrate, we had all the sulfate, all the nitrate brought up with the drought. We had no organic matter breakdown because we had no moisture from June to late October. Yeah. So organic matter wasn't doing anything. We didn't have our typical tie-up that we'd see in residue. Typically we cut wheat, and that high carbon residue starts breaking down because we have some summer moisture and it's tying up nitrogen. That nitrogen gets released in the spring. Well, we didn't start tie-up until October 27th, October 25th for a large part of the state. So we're going to see a lot of high residual nitrates from the soil test collected in September and early October, but then that nitrate might be a false positive because the organic matter's tying it up right now. So we've got a lot of flux. If it gets cold, it'll stop the tie-up, but if we stay warm, it might be more representative of a normal year if we have a warm winter where it keeps turning that organic matter cycle.
One thing, and you address this in a future podcast to be released. You've talked to or you've been at different conferences, and word on the street is things are kind of balancing out in the Pacific Ocean, hopefully.
That weathermen are
We don't talk about that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, right. But I mean, I'm saying
weathermen are hopeful. So for the winter crop school, we had Jeff Bassara up and talking about the potential, the forecast, and this was in December. The forecast was looking positively to a transition from La Nina to a neutral, at least, with the potential of El Nino. I just heard a group, the Corteva weather group, and so they do a lot of talks kind of like that, looking at the long-range forecast. The neutral trend, at least early summer, is still there. They're still seeing and still projecting a neutral trend, with the La Nina projection becoming stronger. Now, this projection for El Nino projection, we're talking 60% probability. Right. So that just means they're slightly better than a coin flip that it may happen.
Right.
The neutral has gone up to like a 70-80% projection for the summer. Neutral means this, though. So La Nina means what we've been in the last couple of years. Neutral means they have no clue.
Right. Yeah.
Neutral is it could go either way.
Equal chances.
Yeah, equal chances of all things. So does that mean it's helpful? Well, it means we might have a better chance for not having something bad happen.
And just briefly on the winter crop school, I was very impressed with the speaker from OU.
Jeff Becerra.
I was blown away because for my simple mind, he really explained how things in Singapore are impacting the Oklahoma weather, and the rainfalls in East Asia impact the way that the waters cool in the Pacific, which impact the way that the heat radiates, and it impacts the creation of lows and highs and all of that. And that helped me understand that, and really want to really focus on how we can get better rainfall in Singapore.
Well, if you want to see that talk, just Google me up on YouTube, because it's all on YouTube.
There you go.
As the person who did all the video editing wouldn't know, But yeah, we have the entire winter crop school loaded up on YouTube, so it's free to watch and download by sessions and check that out.
But yeah, that I found that very helpful for the recreational rancher that I am. It was good for me. So, and so really, Oklahoma producers need to be thinking about applications whenever the time is right.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it all turns out, and we've got a good stand. Everything's looking. I mean, where there's wheat up, it looks. Even the late stuff, my stuff planted in December, really nice stand on it, and so there is potential there, and we're going to have to manage for it. But if we're in this cost balance ratio, I'm still looking at wanting to know what's happening on that soil moisture side before I go all in. I'm not ready to put on 120 pounds of nitrogen given the soil moisture conditions we have.
So whenever it comes to the wheat plant, we're fortunate to have
best.
Is he the granddaddy of all?
The guru. No, he's the guru. Guru.
I'm trying to think of.
Let's not bring age to it.
Yeah, I was about to say. Now you're just calling him old, so he's never going to come back again.
And one thing about Dr. Brett Carver, he's always tried to take the sports analogy with whatever he's talking about. So really, I mean, you could be the GOAT, the greatest of all times. Stealing a sports analogy there, but kind of give the folks a background on who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, let's drop the GOAT. For one thing, I understand that's one of the top 5 words we need to drop from our vocabulary.
Is that what
officially.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has it been canceled?
It's canceled.
Okay.
It's canceled.
along with it is what it is.
Well, and if I remember correctly, in extension, there's the it depends. So
that's never going to get dropped.
I was going to say that.
You're not losing it.
That one has to stay.
There.
But no, give an introduction, kind of your background and what you do.
Okay, I breed wheat and have a lot of fun breeding wheat. I've been doing it. Well, I guess in an official capacity, developing varieties since the day Dr. Ed Smith, retired. And that was 1998. So yeah, going on a few decades now. It's kind of scary.
Has your whole career been here at OSU? Or?
It sure has. Came here in 85, about this time. A week later from now, it would have been in 1985. Snowstorm. I thought, man, where have I moved to?
Yeah.
I'd never been west of the Mississippi River. Never.
Yeah.
And coming out here, I thought, boy, this is wild country. And I thought, well, we're going to make this work. And it was a great job. It's not the job I do now. It was the Wheat Commission and the Oklahoma Wheat Research Foundation felt like they needed to bolster up the breeding program with a geneticist, somebody who would basically do all the grunt genetics work and field-based genetics work, not like we talk about now in the laboratory, but a field-based quantitative genetics research program. It was get this, it was a 95% research, 5% teaching appointment. And I really liked the idea of doing that research. Had never done any research in wheat before. Didn't really know what a wheat plant looked like. I knew all about soybeans and a little bit about cotton, but nothing about wheat. Hey, that was just fertile ground. And things just took off. Learned a lot about wheat in from 85 to 98. Really learning about the breeding program. So when Dr. Smith retired, I had all this practice, and I thought, well, heck, let's just take this practice and turn it into something. And one of my practices was kind of perfecting the dual purpose adaptation situation. That was really not something Dr. Smith took a liking to, I felt, and that was fine. Nobody else did in the Great Plains. But here we were putting cattle out on all our wheat, but never really breeding for it. I thought, how odd is that? So I can't believe I'm talking about this. It's not what I really expected to talk about, but it really
expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we'll keep doing that. But it was an opportunity I saw to fill a tremendous void, and a very important one. When you plant 6 weeks earlier, you're running into some trouble.
Yeah.
And you need to breed a variety that can handle the trouble. So that was just one of the acid soil tolerance. Nobody was really giving acid soils the attention it needed from the genetic standpoint. A little bit at K-State, but again, that was something going on in other parts of the United States, but not really in the Southern Great Plains. So that's where it kind of started. And before Dr. Smith, it was Dr. Schlehuber. And I finally figured out just when he started. It was I dug up an old departmental handbook. I think Dr. Westerman put it together.
Wow.
And it just accounts for everybody's faculty position in the department up to his time.
Oh, that's cool.
It really is. It's sitting on my desk here at the research station, and I'll never give it up now because I realize just how good that is to have the information. But Dr. Schlehuber, I think, had a federal appointment that maybe that appointment carried over to stateside, and so he was doing federal work, but it was being used by the state to start a breeding program. That would have been 1945.
Wow.
Yeah. And in 1950, he turned to Oklahoma State as I think that's his official starting date. Starting year was 1950. So we've been breeding wheat, basically 3 breeding programs since 1950. That's a little bit unusual.
Impressive.
It is. There's just hardly any turnover.
Yeah.
And that's good because I always say, this is not an overnight job.
No.
It's a 10-year breeding cycle. It's not like breeding trees, thank goodness.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, it takes a long time, and it takes a long time to learn the germplasm, get familiar with it.
So I'm going to jump in if that's okay. I want to learn more, but as you're bringing that up, and this is something I've been kind of curious about lately, watching you change your breeding program to really focus on end use, right? I know you've been phenomenal at that. How does that look to the other breeding programs? Are all the breeding programs nationwide? And I know there's not a ton, but is end use like universally a big deal in the wheat breeding?
We talk like it is.
Fair enough.
But nobody's watching,
Okay.
in a way. there are no rules. I mean, we have guidelines, but there are no rules, and therefore no rules to enforce. And when you have no enforcement, the game is wide open. And unfortunately, up until now, I think, this may change in the very near future, like in the next 6 months. Growers were not really rewarded for quality. Yeah, they're rewarded for growing a hardwood winter wheat crop in Oklahoma. Let's put it that way. But and sometimes higher protein, higher test weight. But a premier type of functionality, or maybe a targeted functionality that would go into our bread baking industry in a certain way. No, we really haven't had that. So why bother then? Yeah. If the grower's not going to be rewarded, there's no incentive for the breeder. There's no incentive for the producer, and we really have operated in that dynamic for a long time now. I have always felt like, man, as soon as you let it skid, you let that slide, it's going to be hard to make it up. If you don't breed for quality, you're not going to have quality. You're not going to have quality for a long time. So, and I admit I did get a little bit lucky. We had some germplasm that ended up being a pretty good base. The first one that comes to mind is Duster. You have Duster as a base, a foundation for your breeding program. It's not the only foundation. It's one of those peers, but it's good on quality. Turns out Gallagher is too. So as long as you have that base to work with, you can go up. But if you're starting way down below level, it's hard to make that ground up and still make the progress in yield.
So you said that really before 1945, 1950, that's whenever the wheat breeding program started at OSU. How was the wheat before that? I mean, was it how did a wheat crop grow in Oklahoma before there was a science behind? How about we select for this and we build a better wheat plant?
Farmers.
Yeah.
Farmers were doing the breeding.
Okay.
They were selecting adapted types out of what it amounted to was turkey wheat that was brought over from Eastern Europe. The German Mennonites who settled in Kansas, and that's not just a variety like we talk about a variety today. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of different genetics types. So you can pull those types out that fit your particular growing environment, and now you have your own little variety. And that's what was going on. These were selections out of turkey and other related stocks, but turkey was the big one. And there were, believe this or not, the first cross I think made in Oklahoma was not made, of course, here. It was made by a wheat farmer in 1922. I wrote the paper many years ago, so I need to go back and see what I wrote. But it's in the early 1920s. Joseph Daney did that, and I think he was in Kingfisher for a while and then moved to Sweetwater, Oklahoma. And that's where he set up his breeding program. And that's where we got the variety Triumph.
Wow.
In the 1940s.
Really?
Yes. He bred
I didn't realize Triumph was that old.
Oh, yeah. It came from across in the early 1920s. And this guy was pretty smart. He only had the 8th grade education, but that didn't matter. He did a lot of reading and potato breeding, all kinds of plant breeding books that would have been available at the time, and figured out, okay, one thing we need to do with Oklahoma wheat is make it earlier, mature earlier than what turkey was doing back in that day. That was one of the big drawbacks of it. And he ended up crossing with what it amounted to was an Australian wheat variety, which is a spring wheat.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe facultative, but it's not a winter.
Yeah.
And he came up with Triumph, which is today, by today's standards, we grow Triumph in a living museum every year just to kind of keep up with things, see where we've been, just to know where we're going. And Triumph is, wow, it is early. It almost breaks dormers way too early. In some years. With a February freeze, it would be too early. So it's pretty fascinating. So, yeah, you have a farmer doing the breeding. Yeah. I think there would have been some crossing done at K-State, maybe early 40s, late 30s. I think that would have gotten started then, and then OSU came in.
And when it comes to breeding, it's not like breeding, livestock. Hey, we're going to put these two out there and they're going to do their thing. There's a lot that goes into wheat breeding? I mean, kind of briefly walk us through the process.
Yeah, it's all about choosing the right parents. If you're going to try to make something better, you better start with something that will increase the odds of getting something better, and you have to have the right parents. I mean, gosh, we make 1,000 crosses a year.
Oh yeah.
And from those 1,000 crosses, we have about what I call them our bull set, our best bulls, about 30 to 40 best bulls, and we're putting those bulls onto just about anything else around the world. But we're choosing very carefully. Of course, we're going to focus on the parents that we generate here in our own program, because we know we can make the fastest progress. But sometimes the fastest progress doesn't mean you're going to have a program 20 years from now. It's going to look like a telephone pole. So you got to branch it out. Keep those branches coming. That allows you to make progress in the future. I kind of got off the track there, but it's a big part of breeding.
How's your program look now versus say 22 or 2002? So you'd been in for a couple of years doing what you're doing by 2002. What's the difference 20 years later?
Diversity is number one. The thing that comes to mind is, we were very much centered on that Triumph trunk, and I knew we had to get away from it. I think Dr. Smith knew that. In fact, he brought in Pioneer germplasm before I even came into the breeding program, and I think his mission was, okay, let's diversify. Now, Pioneer germplasm had European influence that we didn't have, even Western European influence, but we really need the Eastern European influence to make good progress here. He started that. Dr. Klatt worked here for, I don't know, how many years was it? Retired in the mid-teens. Came in right after I started in 1999, so about 15 years. And the main thing he did was increase the diversity of our germplasm. Tapped into that cement pool that a lot of the breeding programs throughout the Great Plains tap into, but that's how we did it through Art Klatt. So it's this is not a tree with a couple trunks. It's a lot of different trunks.
Stepping away from just OSU, there are other wheat breeding programs across the country, but they are focused on their area. K-State has a wheat breeding program that's focused primarily on the producers of Kansas, I would assume. Talk about where your varieties are targeted, because I mean you can name a county, and I mean Greer, that was a wheat variety. It was targeted to kind of that part of the state. Talk about what goes into selecting an area for a future variety. Maybe something that's lacking in that area, but you said, hey, this. If I was to put these 2 or 3 varieties together, that might work for Greer County or wherever.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, the only time I really think about in those terms is when I'm trying to get adaptation of the high plains, because we're at a disadvantage having home base headquarters in Stillwater. This is not the best place to have your breeding program centralized. So we actually have moved it. I mean, Lahoma is basically our central place. But if we really want adaptation out in the Panhandle of the High Plains, I have to make the crosses to get us there. But to make or to produce a variety that's adapted to, say, to the Southwest, it's going to fall out. It's going to come out of all the thousands of the crosses we make, and it just by default. I mean, because we have the diversity, we can go in that direction. The challenge is, once you have the progenies, you have to figure out, well, where do they work the best? And we're always going to start out thinking, well, they're going to work statewide. And then we figure out, no, that's not right. And we start just, narrowing it down as we go along. That's why it takes 5 to 6 years of testing, just testing an experimental line. It's fixed. It could have been released 5 years ago. It's stable, uniform, but we don't know where it works the best, and it takes 5 to 6 years to figure that out.
Because in those 5 to 6 years, you can have a flood, you can have a drought, you can have hard freezes, untimely freezes, and that kind of helps you make that decision.
Yeah, think back from 2022, every year back. Now, 2020 and 2019 were very similar, I thought. We had one disease, one big disease. We had others, but septoria was the big disease. And that made a footprint on our program. But, 21, we had leaf rust and stripe rust. We had the freeze in April. 22, we had just the year-long drought. Okay, now go back. 18, remember that freeze in April? That left a huge imprint on the program. 17, oh my gosh, the worst leaf rust infection I have ever seen. That came in March, not in May like it normally does. 16, leaf rust and stripe rust again. 15, remember that? Just stripe rust. You remember. And so, you need all those years to figure it all out. And I say all this because I think we kind of get in a rush sometimes. I think we as wheat breeders tend to get in a rush. We think we have something. The one-hit wonders are abound. I mean, they're always there. They're going to fool you, trick you, suck you in, and then you're just going to be disappointed. It always happens. So you really need the multi-years, but I think sometimes we may be releasing a variety that's a little bit too soon.
All right, I'm going down this road, and you can delete this off the audio if he doesn't allow it. What's of your program? What's a one-hit wonder that stands out to you? Is there one that just like, if I only had to do it again?
There haven't been too many of those because again we test enough where we can keep that from happening. But Pete is the one that comes to mind. That was and I had another beardless. It was this one or that one. Even talked to Jeff Edwards about this. I remember the conversation having it with him, and we knew that Pete had the yield potential, had a test weight, which is a little bit odd for a beardless wheat, and but I knew, and I also knew it was early. I also knew it had a little bit of susceptibility to stripe rust. Little did I know just how little bit that was off. And it turns out that the beardless that we didn't go with had better stripe rust resistance. It would have taken the stripe rust that we had that I just talked about, in 15, 16, 19, 21. So Pete is probably our magnet for stripe rust. That's the way Bob Hunger would treat it. It's also a magnet for BYD. But I really thought that was going to be our step up in beardless wheat. No, it took us back.
So when you talk about selecting, you have at least the last couple of years, a lot of growers talking about that February freeze isn't their striking issue, it's that April freeze. So kind of like, what have you done in your program to combat, or maybe are currently doing in your program to combat not that early or that late winter freeze, it's that, those Easter freezes that we all know are all too common here in the Southern Plains?
Well, if you really want to improve yield in Oklahoma, you breed early. You make something just break dormancy as early as possible, and hope you get around those freezes, and you've got a yield wonder. Well, we know that doesn't work. We just cannot. We don't have that opportunity, and I don't know if anybody really does in the Great Plains. We have to get through April. So it's really the opposite. We have to breed for late maturity, and that's why you see a lot of our varieties relatively late compared to everything. Not everything, but other neighboring programs. That I feel like gets us through that April freeze. Here's another thing. We're breeding for grazing tolerance. And I have noticed over the years, and this is not just a few years, this is decades, that the more grazing tolerant wheats tend to come out of these freezes. Now, when you had the freeze in April when you're at heading, that's a little bit different story. But before then, it's amazing how that rebound is so much stronger in those real grazing tolerant wheats because they can regenerate. If it's because of cattle, that's great. But if it's because of coal, that's you're still killing tissue.
Tissue loss is tissue loss.
Tissue loss is tissue loss. How are you going to come back
cattle,
from that?
Freeze.
Yeah, and so I know we're not grazing as much as we used to, but I include that grazing component in our selection as much as I ever have before, and I probably always will. Another thing that I think we can do to get around these freezes is, not plant so dadgum early, to graze. If we're not going to graze, don't plant so early. Now you know where I'm going with this. We're talking about a very different kind of wheat variety than we've ever talked about before, what we call, and Amanda hopefully has talked about this, Dr. Silva, short season wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you plant something, not in October even. Forget October. It's too early. Plant it November, after Thanksgiving. So you still have a winter wheat. You still have to get through the winter. But you want something that's going to pick up speed in the spring when you really need it. And because you're planting early, you've just pushed the calendar back. You need something that picks up speed because once you flower, you really want to get to June. You want to get to harvest as fast as possible.
So what's the difference in that short versus a spring? Why not just do a spring?
Well, it's kind of hard to plant wheat in February, in March, and get tillering. We tend to get hot pretty quick a lot of years. Or we have hot spells in those cold months. And I've tried it. I'm sure farmers have tried it a lot more than I have. And spring wheat just doesn't yield like it should or like it can in other places. So I think we need that more tamed winter growth habit. It's still a weak winter growth habit, but it still requires vernalization, and it gets you through those cold months.
Well, when we tried spring canola, it was those random 100-degree days in May that always got us. Is that similar to what would happen in the wheat? Those 90-degree days, 100-degree days in late May would always just make it to where those pods didn't fill. Those flowers really didn't really do their job.
Well, if it's late May, I think we're over the hump by then. We're looking at varieties now that if you just plant them like we're used to doing is mid-October. If you're patient and not grazing, they can mature middle of May, third week of May.
Well, I guess I'm talking about those springs, those reasons why those springs don't work here, because that would be a little bit later normally, wouldn't it?
That's true. So, that's another thing. That's a good point, Josh, is the spring wheats will tend not to catch up with the winters.
Yeah.
And they're going to get dinged. Yeah. By those hot spells when the winters are winding it down.
Already done.
Yeah, and so we really want that spring type growth habit, but we want it in a winter plant. It's the best of both worlds.
Well, so I guess is the growth, because we talk all the time, and I know it's not what you came to talk about. Those spring planted oats, are work well, mainly as a graze system here in the state of Oklahoma, but there are a lot of folks that take those out to seed, and they seem to do okay. Does it just have such a shorter growth period than the spring wheats would, or do you happen to know maybe off the top of your head?
No, I really don't, but knowing what I know about oats and barley, I'm not surprised to hear that.
Okay.
And, barley is one that really finishes fast.
Yeah.
We need to emulate that in wheat.
Because on the November planted wheat, and I know Amanda's looking at a lot of that, and I'm kind of excited because for a variety of reasons, planting wheat in November, not only just from a wheat production standpoint, yield standpoint, but then a managerial standpoint, you can delay that planting and then help you clean up the wheat fields to some extent. Because every day you can wait is another day you have potential weed germination and things like that. But are you starting to plant some of your varieties in that November window, the experimentals or whatever, to see if you can start really pulling some out that are?
Oh yeah, we had to do a lot of that this year.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a good test.
By necessity.
By necessity.
Yeah.
And it wasn't by design, but we're planting breeding stock from just after Labor Day or maybe just before it, all the way up to getting a cramp, all the way up to first week of December.
Nice.
That's a pretty long span of planting. So we're exposing the material to that kind of system.
Nice.
Well, kind of like what you said, but also the double crop situation. I mean, that's a godsend for that, because I mean, if you don't get that out of the ground till late October, it just fits in perfectly. That way you're not rushing to get weed in. You're allowing maybe some weed control, maybe a rain to set in before you go in and plant that wheat, and planting it into better conditions than just right after the combine rolls through, puts the sorghum or the beans out of the ground.
what I worry about, I know we can go in at that time and plant and get a good stand, get a good crop. We have to have some moisture. I realize that. But what I worry about is, can we get it out in time? Mm-hmm. What about planting this that summer crop afterwards? That's my big concern. Yep. So when we push that planting date back to an early December one, we can get that wheat done by the first week of June with some types of genetics, not everything. Yeah. It takes a Butler's goal.
We're taking a quick break so the doctors can build their list of the most impactful wheat varieties in the Southern Great Plains. And while they do that, I want to remind you to hit the subscribe button where you get your podcast. And if you want to learn more about what the doctors are talking about, jump over to reddirtagronomy.com for all of that information and a place to submit questions for them in the future. It's always fun to hear from you guys, and the doctors love hearing your questions too. Again, that's reddirtagronomy.com. Now let's dive back in with Dr. Brian Urnell. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
I was at one meeting, carbon market, all that stuff was very heavy. You know what the biggest keyword right now is in the carbon and it's double crop. There's a huge interest in increasing double crop acres. We see it in the USDA stuff they're doing, and so
really,
I think there's a lot of it. There's a lot of talk in the Southeast. There's a huge discussion, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, how to push a double crop system more effectively. Down in Mississippi, Louisiana, it's an issue with the wheat that they grow get too much stubble, and then trying to come into it is a big challenge. So they burn their wheat stubble just to be able to plant back in, because one rain, heavy ground, one rain with wheat residue on the ground, you don't get back in because that soil stays wet for 2 weeks. It's not like us. We can get a rain and be back in 2 days. They get a rain in the Southeast on a wheat stubble, and what, Josh, you're done for a bit.
Yeah, if you're in that gumbo, you're pretty much out for the year.
And so really big, how do we manage double crop and short season? So there's a big discussion on what you're talking about, moving further south, moving it up. Can we be out a week earlier to have a little more opportunity to do some stubble management, to do...
Yeah, I mean, I think Angela Post, when I first got here, she, her and I worked on a project is that basically if you could get wheat out 1 week earlier, that's a godsend some year in getting soybeans in or milo in, because either A, you get another week to potentially get a rain, or two, if you're late, you actually can get it in on time, if you will.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it works on both ends of the spectrum, and working in different systems, it's all about that wheat component. It's either can we get that wheat in after, or how can we get that wheat to be so proficient that it finishes earlier, and then we can work on that subsequent crop.
Right. But remember, we were talking about April freezes. Those tend to get in the way of doing this, because you need to be surely we want to be flowering by then. Well, we have a freeze.
Yeah.
That's really going to set us back. So we have that limitation, and I don't know how exactly to get around that. I'm convinced we can tailor the genetics. We have the markers. We're getting the markers with alleling in. We need more to fill in a lot of pieces, but I think we can get that maturity to move upwards earlier than where we're at now.
Well, and that kind of begs the question, because you've talked about how you when you started, you had a concentrated effort to bring in this grazing component to improve our ability to utilize the wheat for grazing and then make good grain. And then, you're looking at quality. And then, but when you started, there were 10 million acres of wheat in Oklahoma, right?
Well, not that many, but
but there was
we can round up.
Yeah. But there was, we'll round up, right?
Yeah.
But now, and we still, because we've looked at this just like cropping history in Oklahoma, and it's really fascinating because everybody thinks about it as a wheat state, and it is a wheat state. But we're seeing more diversity in our cropping systems, and in conservation, that's the one goal is to improve diversity to help with all the insects and disease and weed pressures. And then, but it's a challenge because it's a challenging environment. And then you have this wheat base, and then so are you looking at how we can improve the wheat in those rotations, or like take into account like how does growing wheat after grain sorghum, or like we've talked about double crop, but can you talk about that? Like, how do you think that it's worthwhile to look at some of these rotational effects on these varieties or vice versa?
Oh, absolutely. We I need other people in the game, to conduct that research.
Yeah.
But I think we have the genetics that will fit. And you're so right, Jason. I mean, coming in and thinking about a dual purpose adaptive variety, that is a long season variety.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about short season, that is what I call the antithesis of what we spent so much time perfecting.
Yeah.
It's a dual purpose system. So whatever we did that way, we have to do it just the opposite.
Really?
And it's a whole new game. It's a lot of new learning.
Yeah.
That we have to go through, and to get it to work in a system.
Yeah.
I need some help there.
Yeah.
So take a little bit and tell us a little bit about the team that you're working with now versus, because I'm assuming in 99 or 98 you didn't have a big team around you, or you had a team.
We
there's
did.
A lot of scientists. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of scientists then, and we didn't call it a team.
Yeah.
We were all just kind of going about our own business, our own way, and I think back today still, I think how stupid that was. Here we were, we when it came time to ask for money from the Wheat Research Foundation, we all would send in our best proposal. We wouldn't talk to anybody else. We're going to compete against that person.
Yeah.
Imagine that. We're competing against people we should be playing along with, cooperating with. And so the whole team concept was just to get people to think on the same plane. And I was amazed at just how much animosity there was, and maybe it's jealousy driven. I don't know. I don't get into all the personal stuff, but it was just amazing to me how much we were wasting by not having a more coherent effort. And I feel like we really have that now. We're missing some pieces. Yeah. I mean, we definitely have Dr. Hunger. Now his position is back on strong ground. I really feel like on a pathology standpoint, we're very strong. Of course, we have Amanda in extension, and that's good. We need to do something about weed science because here we are in a coaxium world, and I want somebody to some shoulder to come cry on when that first coaxium doesn't quite work right. No, we won't talk about that. But it's amazing how that has turned around, and I'm amazed at how little you see this in other universities.
So I was going to ask about that.
There's still that competition, but there's hardly any cooperation to match it. You got to have both. It's okay to be competitive, but you got to be able to cooperate with the people so you can put those dollars to best use. I felt like, another thing was, we were asking the administration to make decisions that researchers should have been making. How in the world are they going to know? How to breed a wheat variety and the best way to get to point Z from point A, and that's not to insult that. I just felt like the researchers are the ones that really know how to get there.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. I mean, all of us, Jason and I, have been around not as long as you, but not far. I came in 2000. You were in 98, 97, first time, right? When did you come to Stillwater?
Well, I was in school in 99 or so.
But the decompartmentalization of the department over the last 25 years has been really interesting to watch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, we had weeds, we had plants, and we had soils, and then everything else. And boy, I was just amazed that plants and soils didn't get along very well.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
It really is.
Because now it seems like we're going on 15 years, Brian, as faculty members, right?
Yeah.
And I've always felt that it's very collaborative interaction among all the faculty. We don't always work close together, but I've never felt like I couldn't talk to anybody in the whole department about what I'm trying to accomplish, and it's been good.
Yeah. Hostilities are out the window.
Yeah.
We can't operate that way.
No.
You know? And I know there were some good faculty members who left here because I think there were some hostilities.
Yeah.
Didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Going back to the Jack Harlan days.
Really?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So a much better cooperative environment, I think, we have in this department. It's about as good as it can get, I think.
Yeah. I do have a historical question. You kind of started off with this about the grazing. Have farmers in Oklahoma, since they started farming, been grazing wheat? Or do you know, like, some of the history of, like, when people finally decided
I
that was
don't
a good
know
idea?
when that switch was flipped. I really don't. I'd like to know myself.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that either, because it would have been brought in as a grain-based, right? Surely they weren't right off the bat. I can't imagine grazing.
In the early 1900s they were grazing.
No.
I don't read much about that, so I don't think that was going on.
Oh.
But what were the factors that made that happen? I don't know. It's a good question.
So early on, would they have been planting the wheat in that time frame, the September, October time frame, and then just look at the wheat and go, it's green. These cows need something to eat.
It's a grass.
Yeah, I mean, it would. Were they planting it that early and then kind of making that logical jump to let's go let them walk around and chew on it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I've read on I've talked about Triumph and
right.
Nothing that I have read has talked about Triumph's grazability.
Right. Well,
just not there.
Okay. What time of year would they have?
That would have been the 40s.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, would they have planted Triumph in September, October, or when it was introduced? What time of year would they have planted it?
I would have thought probably mid-October to late October,
right.
Because I know if you plant Triumph in early October, it's going to try to party way too early.
I think we all know what happens whenever you try to party too early.
Yeah, and I ask because it's kind of with what we have going on now in conservation and like the integration of cropping and cattle production all over the United States with the cover crop and stuff like that. I just share a little story. And when I was in school in Virginia, I had a friend. He was a technician in the department, and he had some ground up in the mountains near Blacksburg. And the common practice there, because of the steepness of slope, was to grow corn or soybeans, and then they'd plant rye as a cover crop. And I remember 2 years into being there, they were in a drought, in quotes. And, of course, back home, I'm talking to my dad, and he's saying it hadn't rained in 6 months, and these people in Virginia worried about it not raining in 2 weeks. But and it's just the difference in drought, intensity. And I went to this guy's farm, and I was like, why don't you kick your cattle out there? You complaining about not having any grass. Why don't you kick your cattle out on that rye? He says, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, why the hell not? There's a couple million acres of ground that's grazed every year on small grains. And he just said you couldn't do it. And this stuff was 6 inches tall just out there in February. And that's why I ask is that, it's a resource that's there. And to my understanding, we've always utilized it. But then really the whole science around it and looking at first hollow stem and pulling the cattle off, that's really not that old as far as the research that was done to help growers make those decisions on when to plant, the ramifications of planting early, ramifications of grazing, and then the ramifications of when you pull that off, right? It's not that old.
Well, I don't think that research is done anyway. I think we need to go back to pick that up. I think we have some problems with it.
Oh,
I really do.
Can you expand on that?
I can, but I want to go back to your first point. I think about the Southeast. They have a lot of wheat over there, and there's not graze. There's cattle there.
Yeah.
It has something to do, I would think, with moisture. I mean, we can graze winter wheat in January and won't trample it to death.
Yeah.
I have to think that that's going to be more of a problem.
Well, when they tried it, then I think that at least a couple of times up in the north, because Oklahoma boy goes to Louisiana, sees all this wheat.
Yeah.
Why haven't you got the moo-moos out here?
Yeah.
And they said, one, they'll lose the beds, because they're all bedded wheat up there. And two, they said that they tried it one time. They had a lot of hoof rot.
Yeah.
Because the water just stands in the furrows and the cows stand in the furrows, and then they get hoof rot just standing in there all the time. So
it wasn't so much the wheat crop; it was the beef crop.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's just it kind of just didn't fit into their system because wheat. We talk about the guys in the East. Wheat is my cover crop going into my summer crops, and there that's what it is. It's residue. Yeah. And the funny thing is really good yielding residue, but it's a proxy to get those soybeans some residue to stand up.
You also got to look. I mean, one of the benefits for wheat here is that gives our cattle something to eat.
Yeah.
Over there, they have a lot more forage. They've got more to eat. We're begging for something to put cattle on.
They're cool season grasses to choose from.
Being in Louisiana working wheat there, the wheats there is different. And so, I mean, we kind of haven't, I'm sure a lot of growers out there kind of know the difference in the wheats and that we grow different wheat than Louisiana and the Southeast. What are the kinds of wheat? And we're not only growing hard red anymore here.
Okay, so, I mean, there you're talking about soft wheat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, in terms of a grass, it really isn't different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That soft wheat is a grass just like our hard wheat is. And, in fact, that was one of the things I first looked at when I came here was I heard that, that soft wheat produces a lot more forage than hard wheat. Nonsense. It just took a couple of trials to figure that out. But and even today, I don't think that's true. But there really is a lot of commonality. But when it comes to grain, it's very different.
Yeah.
I want to make, and I'll say it right now, I'd like to say, okay, hard wheat, yes. Soft wheat, yes. Well, what about in between? Mm-hmm. We're constantly blending hard wheat and soft wheat. We're not. Yeah. The millers are, for good reason, because we're making a lot of different food products. And you have to come up with a blend to make that food product just right. Well, why not just blend it genetically?
Yeah.
And so we really are going down that path. Mm. It's not going to be, it's not going to be duster type dominate acreage, but it's going to, I think, fill a certain need in our industry. First thing that's going to, we've had an experimental line just waiting to release. We just needed to make sure we had a place to go with it. And I think we do, but a high protein soft. Mm-hmm. A lot of need for that. Not just a normal, typically low protein soft, which is, the way soft wheat goes a lot of times. Yep. Doesn't have to. It can be high protein. Also a little bit different gluten. Mm-hmm. Make it have a gluten that's more indicative of a hard wheat, but it's in a soft wheat endosperm. Now you're talking about catering to a Vita-wheat gluten industry, mm-hmm. where it's usually easier to pull out that gluten in a soft wheat kernel than it is in a hard wheat kernel.
You've done similar releases with hard white variety, correct? And or a white wheat, because the industry kind of was looking for something different than hard red and along those lines.
Yeah, well, the industry was looking for higher flour extraction.
Okay.
You can extract more flour from that white kernel, mm-hmm. because you won't see the effect of the brand that may come along with higher extraction, or you may not analyze a higher ash content mm-hmm. that would come along with that brand in a white wheat. That's what really was driving that, and still is today.
Yeah,
still is.
So when you're looking at this high pro soft, how much conversation do you have to have with the milling industry even before you make the decision to try? Yeah. Or is it you're going to go for it and then see if there's a...
First of all, it's common sense. It says you got to try.
Yeah.
And then once you have something, then you have to figure out, well, how do we get into the marketplace? That I was a little bit fooled by. That takes a little bit more time. And it takes a little bit more help than what we have normally through a university wheat breeding program. So we've actually turned to a company out of Kansas that they're in the business of set up supply chains.
Oh, okay.
We can't set up a supply chain. We're trying to feed the supply chain. Mm-hmm. And we try to make sure it goes through that supply chain to a certain point. But as a university, we're not good at that.
No, we shouldn't.
So I'll just say the company we're working with is Farm Strategy, and they're doing a good job of helping us find the right customers, baking customers. I mean, all the way through the supply chain to take this really strong gluten that we have now in these Gallagher derivatives. We're going to call them ox wheats. Yep. And it's just, strong as an ox kind of mentality there. But these are super, super strong doughs that you don't want to go into an elevator and that be the only thing that stocks that elevator, because that's not going to perform the same as even a double stock, which is a pretty strong dough. Yeah. You want to make sure that flour gets to where it needs to go and not just take over, a certain production area.
When you look at like working with these companies, because there's a critical mass, right? Like once you provide the characteristics they want, and then there's a critical mass of the acreage they need based on the bushels and all that stuff. I mean, how does all that work? It's almost like bringing a specialty crop to market, but maybe not as hard, because it's a chicken and the egg. You find the market and you produce the wheat. You produce the wheat to bring into market, and then they can use it. Or how does that? Can you give us a feel for how that's working? Because I think it's exciting.
Yeah, probably to back up a little bit. The way the market works now is if there are deficiencies in our flour in terms of quality, which there are plenty.
Yeah.
Okay. Not every wheat variety is the same. Doesn't make the same loaf of bread. In the market, the industry gets around that by just throwing stuff in. Hey, have you guys ever looked at a bread label?
Yeah.
You have? I look at them all the time. It's just fascinating to me. Sometimes the third ingredient you'll see flour, water. The third one will be gluten.
Oh.
Whoa.
Okay.
Now, why are we adding gluten as a third ingredient? This is over 2% now.
Yeah.
This can be up to 10 to 15%.
Wow.
We're correcting a lot of deficiencies when we're throwing in that much Vita wheat gluten.
Wow.
To fix it. And then you've got all these other what are called dough conditioners, improvers. They just help fix something.
Yeah.
Why can't we fix it with the flour we're producing?
Yeah.
Why not just make the flour where it doesn't need to be fixed? I really have always believed that is possible, but it's not playing out because that flour doesn't get to the product by itself.
Yeah.
Okay? Now we have the mechanism, I think, in place where we can do that. We're trying it this year. Yeah. Okay? Where instead of throwing in all the Vita wheat gluten, azodicarbonamide, all these names that just, they just don't sound right.
Yeah.
We know they're okay. They're FDA approved, but still, do we need to eat a loaf of bread that's third ingredient is Vita wheat gluten? I just don't think that's necessary. We're actually producing a flour that would replace gluten, would displace gluten from the recipe. It would displace those improvers. Maybe not entirely, but enough to really push them down on the label, where it's pretty much flour, yeast, water.
Where does Vita yeast gluten or Vita you're saying this, I hadn't heard it. Where's this gluten come from that's going back into the bread? Is it actually wheat that's been separated so you concentrate the gluten, or is it a manufactured gluten?
You wash off the starch. You take wheat, you wash out the starch.
So it's a processed wheat to go back into wheat.
That's right. You're purifying the gluten, although you can't really purify it 100%, but pretty close. You're just taking the gluten out of a wheat kernel.
That's a pretty
throwing it back in. And there's
intensive process. I mean,
sure is.
That's an energy-intensive process if we want to start talking about that.
And we tend to purchase our gluten from Western Europe. They get high fructose corn syrup. We get the gluten. But now the gluten plants are going into the Great Plains, right? In Kansas, in fact.
Really?
There is a demand for that. And so, we're going to try to meet that demand with a high-protein slop, but we're also going to try to maybe get around that demand by having a functional dough that doesn't need gluten like most flours do today.
Wow.
It's exciting.
That's cool.
And I have to admit, it probably didn't happen by design. Some things just don't happen like, you think they're going to happen. And I would have never thought taking what we knew was a pretty good donor of a strong gluten, basically any spring wheat, but not even spring wheat. We use snowmass.
Yeah.
Okay, the hard white wheat variety from Colorado, which had a certain type of gluten, it's not a wholesale change, but just a minute portion of that gluten was different.
Yeah.
And that was already present in the spring wheat. And that gave it the strength for them in Colorado to produce a whole wheat white bread. As a hard white wheat, a whole wheat white bread. We just took that and said, okay, let's go now red. Why not? Why limit it just to white wheat? And I would have never thought that we would get the result we did by using Gallagher. And I know Gallagher, I've already said, is a good quality wheat, but it's not a double stop. It's not a baker's hand. But when you take a certain part of Gallagher out, which is a piece of rye chromosome that helps it yield better, when you take that out, it's like taking the lid off. That is one strong boy. And then you put this different kind of gluten in from snowmass. It's the combination of those two that has produced a level of gluten strength I never envisioned. So now, cool. Now we have something. Okay, we discovered something by accident. Now let's not do this by accident anymore. Yeah. Okay.
How much?
That's where we're at.
And I know we're running, but how much is the marker-assisted breeding?
Well, you just meant.
That's
how we
right?
got that gluten in there. That's why ARS is in the name of the experimental line that we're testing. Is because the marker-assisted selection was performed by an ARS lab in Manhattan.
So really, in my mind, and I know that you're always sports minded, but it's like you have a fantasy football league of wheat varieties in my mind, and you're thinking, what if I were to put Gallagher here and maybe Duster over here? We're going to run this play and see what happens. Okay, well we got a white variety or whatever. I'm just throwing out, and then maybe we throw in I don't know, maybe a Billings, and then it's going to build this resistance to this, and you're taking it play by play. In your mind, do you have like a master chart of this variety does this really well, and what if I were to have tweak this breedability to this other variety? Do you have that master chart written down or in your mind?
No, and I wouldn't be sitting here probably if I did.
Right.
We're going on hunches.
Right.
And the way you manage hunches is you don't have a certain variety that you think would work with this other certain variety, but you have a group of varieties. It's basically a pool of genetics that you think will work with this pool, and you make as many possible combinations as you can between those two pools, and then that's how you get something out. But it's hardly ever, this one with that one. We don't have that predictability. I'll say that, right? I'll say that on this podcast.
You don't have that predictability, or you don't have that predictability yet?
Don't have it yet.
Okay.
And, the more we know about the DNA, we know things at the DNA level, the more we're going to be able to do that. And a lot of breeding now is based on predictability, using DNA-based information, predictive values. It's an art form right now. We need to make it more scientific.
Well, because I've in interviews before, I've asked you about, and you've said, well, this variety has this comparable to Gallagher or whatever, and I thought, hey, he has to be looking at that whenever it's in the breeding process, and he's like, what if we were to sprinkle a little bit of Gallagher in there? Poof, ding. But it really isn't that. It's just a comedy of errors, and this is the variety that comes from it.
Comedy of minimizing the errors.
Exactly. That's
and hardly are you going to use Gallagher.
Right.
It's going to be maybe something derived from Gallagher.
Right.
Because that's how you stay ahead. If we're breeding with Gallagher today, we're not going to be ahead.
So on top of that, sorry guys, I don't mean to keep stealing all the questions here, but on top of that, you mentioned your ox.
Yeah.
Your oxen varieties. What are your go-to stout varieties that you can the oak trees that you always go back to?
Oh, yeah. Well, it has been Gallagher,
right,
and Gallagher derivatives,
right,
like Smith's Gold,
right,
but still something from Smith's Gold. Okay, but another one is double stop,
right,
and we've been a little bit limited by that because double stop has the Clearfield trait. Well, do we always want to just go Clearfield with double stop genetics? No. So we've actually been able to breed out that trait. We want to keep the trait in certain places.
Oh, yeah.
But remove it, and then now we can use that double stop background because that is a very reliable source of genetics, agronomic quality of the whole thing. I mean, it's number one. It was the number one wheat variety last year. I don't know what will be this year, but we'll see.
When you're creating a duster, whenever all these years ago, whenever you're going through there and you're like, man, this is becoming our go-to. Do you foresee future varieties off of that at that point, or do you just say, hey, we're going to ride this one as long as we can? It's performing well in Oklahoma. It's performing well in the Southern Great Plains. Or in your mind, are you thinking, hey, what if we take this?
Oh gosh, I see where you're going with
of this, and maybe try with this.
Oh yes, we were crossing with Duster 5 years before it was ever released.
Right.
Same with Gallagher. Same with Double Stop. Oh yeah, you got to jump on that before somebody else does.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
A little bit off this, I'm just kind of curious. What was the biggest surprise variety? The one that you released that just done even bigger and better that you could have ever imagined?
Wow. It could have been Duster. It could have been. I knew it had potential, but I didn't know it had quite that potential. Then, when we came out with it in 07, what was 07? Anybody remember? It's a wet year.
The wet. Okay.
Actually started out dry.
I remember that, all the floods, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the only year that, in my time here, that I didn't harvest at Lahoma. We left it in the field.
Wow.
Had a graduate student studying. It's so heartbreaking.
I've got pictures from 07 that you remind me out at Lake Carl Blackwell, carp eating the berries off of wheat heads.
Wow.
On our research plots.
Wow. It's amazing. And so that's not a Duster environment. Yeah, so you can imagine. I mean, this reminded me of the story I heard about concho wheat, concho being developed by Dr. Schlehuber. Through the 50s, when we had all that drought in the 50s, he wanted a drought-resistant variety. When he finally came up with concho, this drought-resistant, wonderful variety, it came out in a wet year.
Yeah,
concho just fell flat. So at Duster, after we got through that disappointment of that wet 07, it did what it was supposed to do. But I thought it went a little bit farther than I ever imagined.
I guess going off Brian's question, is Jagger yours?
No, K-State, but that could be theirs.
Yeah, because back when I was a student, it's just tons of acres of Jagger.
Oh gosh,
and everything in between.
Yeah, so that's when I started running this program. When Jagger was so popular, I thought, oh boy, this is tough. This is going to be tough. And then Jaggerline. Oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? This is stiff competition.
OSU long-term fertility trials had Jagger and Jaggerline.
Yeah, they were
tough to.
They were more than a step change, and you can kind of see it. You don't see Jaggerline in our varieties today for reasons, but you do see Jagger and I'm going to start doing a better job of providing the genetics of all of our varieties. We're going to do that through marketing pieces that are coming out this spring, particularly in field days, where you're going to see the family tree of every variety.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what you're going to see is how pervasive Jagger is. Whoa, it's on both sides of the parentage. You're also going to see Pioneer.
Where do you, if you can trade secrets and all, where do you pull, if you have to get that extra trunk from outside, where do you like to pull from for Oklahoma nowadays?
Well, right here,
yeah.
Okay. We have enough diversity we can pull from right here. We can play it safe. But two places. I go to soft wheat, Southern U.S. or Midwest, or I'll go to Eastern Europe. Okay. And there's no trade secret to that. That's where we go. And you won't see a lot of Eastern European germplasm as the direct parents of our varieties, but you'll see them as grandparents.
Whenever we started the podcast, I thought we ought to call it Three Doctors and Dave, because I'm the only non-doctor here. So I'm going to ask this question. Do you reach out to a counterpart in Eastern Europe and say, you got any of that variety? Can you UPS it to me? I mean, how does that work? Is it? I just don't know. I mean,
it's a much more managed environment now, regulated.
But it used to be. You drop it in FedEx and try to get it here on Tuesday.
Put it in your socks if you're coming this way. But no, nothing like that now. It's highly regulated. We work through legal channels.
Right.
But we set up a situation where we can exchange on a regular basis. And we do that with Hungary, and we do it with Romania each and every year. And so we're giving them some of our best blood.
Right.
They're giving us some really good blood too.
Because, correct me, because I probably am wrong, but that's kind of where modern wheat that we know it, that's kind of the origin in that region.
Yeah, it's where Turkey came from, not Romania.
Yeah.
But not too far. Ukraine is another hot spot for genetics. Gosh, I hope we can get through this, and they can get through it, because they had outstanding germplasm.
Yeah.
And still do.
That's really interesting to think. You provide them your best stuff, and they breed a couple generations down. That same variety might be what you bring back in as good alternate stuff, that they've mixed your stuff or United States stuff with some of their stuff, and then you bring it back to the tree.
That's right. You don't want your program to look just like theirs, and they don't want theirs to look like ours. But and that won't happen. Yeah. Because we're not exchanging that much material.
Yeah.
But it's enough to enjoy the benefits and sort of piggyback on the progress that they're making in an environment that's very close to ours.
Yeah.
Eastern Europe is not that different from Oklahoma. You can grow an Oklahoma wheat variety over there pretty well. Same with the Romanian.
Kind of the cool thing about public breeding groups versus private breeding groups is there's still at least some collaborative efforts. And
as far as back home, I'd say K-State is where we like to venture out with, and I think they come here too.
Yeah.
Our relationship with K-State has really blossomed, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years. We share a lot more secrets, and therefore we share some successes.
I think it's across the board. I think agronomically that relationship with K-State, for me, it's probably been the last 5 or 6 years.
Has it?
Has really increased.
One thing that I've had the opportunity to set in on one of your release meetings, I guess, number of years ago, whenever
That's right.
you had, I think, 5 varieties coming out, and it's not just, I think I like this one, I think we'll call this one Green Hammer. From this day forth, you are now Green Hammer. But it really is a process. You have to bring all of your research into a panel of scientists, and they all have to agree with or understand where you're coming from with some of your choices. Kind of walk the listener through that, because it's not I walk out into this field and I say, that one's green, I think I'll call that Green Hammer. It is a years-long process that culminates in a room in Ag Hall where you have to give a PhD level presentation.
That's right. It's a peer review process, but on a local level.
Yeah.
So you have other scientists from the university who make a decision, well, is this germplasm really worthy of commercialization? If you have all your ducks in line, you've done all your homework and you had 10 years to do it, so you better come close to that. It's usually not a problem, and I've never had one rejected, but you've got to make sure you have those ducks in line, and I do it with data. I'm a data nut, and you just make sure you have that data for them, and it usually goes pretty well. As far as the naming, there's a lot of decisions. I just learned this morning the name of our next variety, if we have approval, if this committee approves it.
Right.
Just got approval from USDA. You have to go through that process. You can't choose a name just because you like it. It can't be something similar to what's already out there. It has to be unique. And so I got around that by using the name of another crop in a wheat variety name. Just a little hint there.
Okay.
But that committee is really important. And they're not there to stand in the way. They're just there to make sure all the boxes are checked.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, this is not, none of those varieties are mine. They're the universities.
Right.
So the university has to get behind it.
Right.
They want to make sure this is something worthy. And then we have to go to the next step to find a licensee. Well, the licensee is usually going to be OGI. It doesn't have to be. So our Office of Technology Commercialization works with OGI. I don't. I mean, I work with them, but I don't work with them to license the variety. Mm-hmm. So we have those pieces in place to make this happen. It's happened very well.
And that's even before the producer gets the opportunity to plant it in their field several years.
Yeah.
A couple of years maybe.
Well, the seed producer, of course, will see it first.
Right.
I should probably warned you more so, Brett, that this is us more of a coffee talk where
Yeah.
we have questions for you. We don't really care what you brought to us. We have questions
I know,
for
he's
you.
got a whole
I
thing
know.
marked up.
I felt bad. He's
Well,
all prepped
so
for like an extension talk. And
yeah,
we're like,
let's-
no, we have too many things.
Let's
We could
dive
probably let
in
him
real
do
quick
his.
and so what do you have prepared for us?
Well, this is a printout. Of course, I have to use a lot of electronic versions of this to come up with a wheat variety recommendation. So this is our elite line from last year, and just the stuff I would like to print. There's a lot more to it than that, but there's a half a dozen lines in here that we're looking at. Maybe not releasing this year, but this year or next. The first one I've already talked about. Well, I didn't really talk about it. Didn't give you a name. The number is OK18510.
I think that's on my bingo card. I'll have to double check that one.
Notice the first two numbers are getting higher because they're getting more recent.
Mm-hmm.
So 18 would mean that's how long we've been testing this variety since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Testing it. We developed it. Started crossing probably in 2011, somewhere in that time frame. So that, and we're looking at a Butler's Gold follow-up that ends in the three numbers of 666. It's just the way it worked out.
Let's see how this variety goes. It's going to be a warmer variety, right? Yeah. It's going to perform well in the summer. Yeah.
Actually, we wanted to get done before the summer. If it's going to be like Butler's Gold, but we can plant it in December. So that's one that I think is rising to the top. That was produced through a very close working relationship with Pioneer. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that, but they are developing hybrid wheat varieties.
Okay.
We are not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we need to.
Right.
We are providing the genetics for them to produce, and other institutions are involved in that as well. But you will probably hear about a Pioneer wheat variety with an Oklahoma State parent in that hybrid. We asked them to produce double haploids for us in about 3,000 in 2017, somewhere in that time frame. And one of those 3,000 now looks like it's going to be worthy of commercialization, but as a short season wheat. It didn't start out that way. We'll have to use another podcast to talk about purple wheat. That's another one. We've talked about the ox wheats, scab-resistant wheat through a collaboration with K-State. That's been made possible. And then what I tend to call, just slang-wise, a double stopless wheat.
Okay.
So a double stop derivative that doesn't have the Clearfield trait. Oh, I'm excited about that because that just opens up a door that I've never had open before.
Whenever you talk with producers across the state and you're out doing extension work and you're standing in the field, a guy pulls over and says, Dr. Carver, what do you have going on out there? Do you listen to the producer about some of the things that they're having issues with in their fields whenever and maybe try to tailor a future variety towards that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's
right.
That's where you learn the most. That's where you get your intel, some of your most valuable intel. I have not hesitated to ask a producer, walk through these plots with me and you pick out one that you like.
Yeah.
What is it that you look for? I've learned a lot from that. I don't do it often, but I do it enough to pick up some really interesting.
Because you're balancing the growth of the plant with the end user, the millers. So I mean, you have to really listen to both.
Yeah. However, it's going to be the wheat farmer, the wheat producer.
Right.
that will make sure that product gets to market. And so we don't please that person, we're not going to be able to please the market.
Well, Dr. Brett Carver, thank you so much for going on with us, and we look forward to sitting down and going through the booklet there that you have, because I mean it really is a booklet with all of your information. So we'll save that for a future podcast.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy podcast. And if you would like to join the next conversation, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. And of course, we'd like to thank Dr. Brett Carver for joining us on this podcast today. To find out more about him or any of our guests, along with any of the information and resources that were talked about today or on any of the podcasts, visit reddirtagronomy.com. There you will find show notes, and you can listen to past episodes too. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Brian Arnell, Dr. Jason Warren, I am the not a doctor, but I play one on a podcast, Dave Deacon, and we want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC 2023. And yes, all rights are reserved.